officer of the 2012 batch and belongs to Kanpur. After graduating in science from St. Stephen's College in Delhi, which is batch of 2009, Sir secured an All India rank of 102 in the 2011 Civil Service Examination. He then received Masters in Taxation and Business Laws from Nalsar University, Hyderabad, an advanced diploma in the International Taxation and Chartered Institute of Taxation in the United Kingdom. Sir was posted at Mumbai for 5 years and held various assignments such as non-corporate and corporate assessment, investigation, and vigilance. He is currently posted on a very serious and a senior position as Deputy Director of Income Tax Investigation in Kanpur and has conducted successful financial investigations, including several Benami prohibition and black money cases, which has resulted in unearthing tax and deterring tax evasion. Now that I've read it, I'm going to give more details of this to sort of people I know in Kanpur, and I'm sure that would make lives easier for me.
Yeah.
Sir also conducted a national NPTEL special lecture series on tax landscape in the Indian and global context. Sir has a huge love and a special place for wildlife, and naturally turned into photography about 10 years back when he was a member of the Wildlife Society at St. Stephen's College. He has written for various magazines and newspapers, including the Hindu, the Sanctuary Asia, and others. His photograph was chosen as the cover for the internationally recognized Hornbill magazine published by the Bombay Natural History Society, the BNHS. His wildlife photography has won him various recognition from the Wildlife Institute of India and UP Forest Corporations as well. He stood first at the National Mangrovian Quiz organized by the Mangrove Foundation, Maharashtra. Sir, as a passionate conservationist, is a part of the Great Indian Buster GIB program as advisory member of the ERDS Foundation and is also a lifetime member of the Bombay Natural History Society. He has also completed ornithology courses from the Cornell Lab, conservation courses from the National Geographic, and the Red List courses from the IUCN. He has conducted several wildlife photography webinars for colleges across the country, including the IIT Kanpur, the IIT Guwahati, Mount Carmel colleges in Bangalore, and several other institutes. Through his writing, webinars, and photography, he continues to spread awareness about wildlife diversity. And I'm sure with the work, it must be very hectic, but that is something he's very passionate about, and he definitely takes out time for that, like he has taken out time for college today. Thank you so very much, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Absolutely. Right. So how do we go about this? I would like to take an input, from everybody here. Like, should we, start with, there's a PPT which I've done. I don't want to sound too boring, but I try to make it interesting. It'll be a surprise for everybody.
Sure.
So, we'll begin with that. And before I begin, I want to thank St. Stephen's College, especially the Center for Advanced Learning and Blesson in particular, who are doing such a great work. It's a very new initiative, and the most important thing is coming back to college, and of course virtually, but it's a big honor for me, and I hope I'll be able to do some justice to everybody here. So I just want one thing, what is the current, situation here? Like, how many people are actually preparing right now? How many have sort of are already way into it? Can maybe some of you just give me an input?
Yeah, if you could unmute your mic and just answer one by one, it'll be good.
Yeah.
So I think because we did like a round of introduction last session also, so I'll just give you like an overview. So I'll just give you like an overview. Most of us are looking to write the exam in 2022 and 2023. And there are some people who are still on the fence about giving the exam itself.
Right. Right. Thank you, Sai. Anybody else would like to add to that? Just a general kind of introduction.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Hello.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear. Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes. Is it? Yeah, Anati.
Yeah, I'm Aarti L. Palikal. So I did physics honors from Stephens, batch of 2020. right now working with Praxis Global
Okay,
Alliance, corporate world. So don't have much
I can
idea about when should I write, or I yesterday
right.
also in a section people were asking like about something, GS and everything. I was like, Gitanjali Siti? No, general studies it is. So that is the kind
So
of
I so
level I am
exactly
in.
get it. Yeah, that's fine. That's
So
totally fine.
yeah, yeah, that is
Yeah,
the current
that's good.
scenario,
So
status
so
quo.
I would like to, in fact, before we even proceed, I would like to actually share that civil services came to my agenda in mid third year. So you can imagine that people who are sort of still preparing and still thinking about it, it's totally fine, because it was at the end of third year, that's when I started thinking that okay, this is something which could be potentially my future. So that's when I started. So, and I had no clue that I would be doing that. I was more into astronomy, and I want to do something in space research. That was my initial choice. But then I sort of diverted myself, and here I am. So what I'll do is I'll share some thoughts. I have a PPT. It won't be too boring. You can please tell me when to stop. When it gets too boring and you want to ask questions, please go ahead. So do not hesitate at all, and don't raise your hands. Don't bother, please. There's no formality here. It's like I'm among you guys, so it's really nice. So okay, so here I'll aim to share it, because there was an issue yesterday. I just hope it doesn't happen again. Yeah, so Blessing, you'll have to enable the participant screen sharing for me. Can you do that? Blessing, you'll have to enable this screen sharing for me.
Yes, I've
Yeah.
already done that.
Oh, you done that? Okay, okay,
Yeah,
right.
pretty much.
I'm sorry, there's a lag, so
No problem.
it gets lost in translation. Just a second. Okay, it's still saying host disabled participant screen sharing. How do we enable this? How do we override this?
Just once. Just once.
Yeah.
Can you try now and just check?
Yeah, I think it's happening. Yeah, it's happening now. Great. So here we are. Can you? Is it visible, the PPT?
Not as yet. Not as yet.
Oh, just a second. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's visible now.
Yeah, it's now coming up. Yes, I can see that.
Great. So it's full screen now, I hope.
Yes.
Nice. So I borrowed this poster. This is all Blessing's hard work. So it just looks nice. All of Stevenians together. That's what attracted me to this poster. So I thought that gives inspiration. It's nice to see. That's, I guess, is a starting. Yeah. Tell me, Blessing.
Raghav, your voice is slightly breaking in between. I believe the internet connection should be the issue, I guess. Because we're losing you time and again.
Blessing, I didn't hear you. Can you message me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it visible now? I think there's some problem with the net.
Yes, we were losing your voice quite a bit, actually.
Oh, hold on. Is it fine now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you at the moment. Huh?
Audible now, is it? Blessing?
Now you
No?
are. Now you're on. Now you're on.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the overview of what we are going to discuss. Why civil service exam, introducing the exam, preparing for GS. sources for GS, preparation strategy, concluding remarks, and an interactive session. You can, of course, you can stop me anytime. So I'll rush to this. This is more formality which I want to get it over with. So why civil service exam? That's the first thing which people ask, like Aarti just said, that why do we even need to think about it? So there are a couple of points which I've sort of summed, over this period of 5-6 years which I've been working. Some points which I thought that might be relevant, which might inspire you and motivate you. The first, of course, is to feel strongly that you can do some good. And if you're one of those who feels that, okay, this is something which I need to do with my life, that I want to do some good to society, to others, and civil service exam gives you the chance to be a civil servant and help directly or indirectly. And the second point is to understand the administrative framework. Now, that's very important because a lot of times we hear, we've all heard cynics criticizing the government policies or the machinery, that, it takes too much time and all those kind of things. But once you're in the system, you actually understand the nuts and bolts. You understand what's exactly the issue, and you do your bit to change that. So that, vantage point is very different from an outsider. Once you're in the system, you understand the limitations, but at the same time, you understand the solutions. So that kind of gives you a chance to, understand the framework, which is massive, and it has a lot of connections, a lot of, intermingling, agencies and departments working together. The third, of course, is to contribute and give back to society. So this is your chance. In fact, I always say that wherever you are, whichever position or status or, in general, the point, and normally we attribute those factors to ourselves, my effort, my, hard work, etc. But there are a lot of invisible factors which have pushed you to be where you are. And this is the karmic way to give back to society. This is slightly philosophical, and people who are into philosophy or, generally musings might be able to appreciate it. But if you think about it, this is one way to get back to society. The next point is to make a tangible impact. Now, this is something very interesting because a lot of jobs don't give you this chance. Once you're in this job, you can actually see your efforts translating into tangible results. Now, this gives you this kind of satisfaction, which is very rare to find in other jobs. It's not that your efforts don't count, but normally what happens is your output is part of a very large picture, and that's why you're not able to see that, literally seeing your work actually translating to something which you thought it would be. Here you make that difference. Your work can actually, at least during a lifetime, you'll be able to see it. That this is what I achieved. But that's something very different. And this is a very major motivation for a lot of civil servants to actually make a difference and see that results happen in front of them. The fifth is to do service before self. And again, this is something which is more on the moral side, that if you feel that you're one of those people who put social service before yourself, and this is again, an ideal platform to do that. You will be in a place where you can reach out to a lot of people. You have resources, you have both human resources and other resources. You can reach out to people, make a difference, teach children in a time you need. A lot of things we can do. That which is massive, which normally a person would probably think about, but not be able to achieve. That's one thing. The next, of course, is to grow personally and professionally, because as a civil servant, every day is different. It's never the same. You'll have some kind of situation which arises, which you never predicted. So that helps you grow every day. You would probably need to pick up some acts which are, and you'll have to read them, summarize them, make points, and present them, and probably apply them as well. So those kind of things really teach you how to think on your toes. You get more confident. You are able to grow both professionally. You're learning a lot of skills every day, and personally, you understand and interact with different kind of people from various backgrounds, understand perspectives, understand how something you thought of could be a solution. So those things, in sum, actually help you a lot. Then, of course, there's this factor of exploring the country. And because the nature of service is such that you could be transferred anywhere. You could be in one state at one time or one city the other. And hence, you understand a variety of cultures, from food to festivals to languages. And that's something which is very different, which you could probably never understand as a tourist. But once you're there working with the people, working for the people, then you understand that, okay, what are the daily problems which they face, and what are their ingenious solutions they come up with. And the interesting thing is that you can apply those solutions or the basis or these, the basic principles of those solutions in some other place. So you could be, let's say, posted in Chennai, and you found something very interesting with local fishermen were doing to save a particular kind of fish there. And you can apply that particular principle in, let's say, Nagaland for some kind of bird. So it's entirely different to you, how you can creatively come up with solutions and apply them elsewhere. So that also helps you, in your service. Then, of course, there's this interesting thing of collaborating with various departments. So, for instance, in my service, I have collaborated with the district administration, with the police, with the railway, with the postal department, with the CBI, with the enforcement directorate, with the director of revenue intelligence. So you understand the gamut of agencies, and you're never limited to one particular area. So it's always an you understand how their functioning happens, and they're not silos. They're not these compartmentalized, agencies, departments doing work. Well, largely, yeah, they are. But then a lot of times you have to collaborate. You have to ask for help and a lot of assistance. So that is something very unique. And the next is, of course, trainings. And some of these trainings are, compulsory. So you have to undergo them as a matter of fact. But a lot of times you have a choice. If you want to, let's say, specialize. So, for example, an Indian forest officer wants to specialize in wildlife conservation. So he can do some kind of, course related to that. Or let's say an Indian postal service person wants to do something, to improve the technological aspect of it. So he can do something in, let's say, machine learning or artificial intelligence and see how that, applies to all of that. You have a choice. So this service gives you, a lot of chance to undergo training, you hone your own skill set, and that again is a very positive impact of civil service. And last but never the least is that you get to train with peers from across the country. And during the training period, which lasts about 14 to 16 months, you meet people from all across. You learn so many things. You understand their background, what they have gone through. You help them when they fall down during the trainings. And these bonds really last a lifetime. And then you have this assurance that you have a support system which is spread across the country. You could be posted in Jammu Kashmir, and you know that there's somebody in Kutch waiting for you. Or you could be somewhere in Thiruvananthapuram, and you know that somebody in Guwahati is there. So things like that, it gives you a very interesting perspective of being connected with various different people all across the country. And that sort of gives you a confidence, a kind of joy, which I don't think is, easily available in other jobs. So that more or less summarizes why civil service exam is something which I would prefer as a job. And I hope this kind of inspires you. And I hope I am not losing out. My voice is still audible. Blessing, you'll have to assure me.
Very much, very much.
Great. So now, since a lot of you might have already gone to sleep, I have a quiz. And this I would be, bringing up in between. And at the end, there'll be, I think there are about four questions which I've sort of, put here. And let's say if there's somebody who is a winner, will be me, right? So the question is, which is protected area, forest, reserve forests, sanctuaries, national parks, etc. So which of the following is not a protected area in India? And the way you're supposed to answer is to raise a hand. You can do that, right? Or I think you could probably unmute yourself. I think that would be easier.
Yeah, they can raise their hand also and then speak. The first one who raises a hand gets it.
Yes. So Blessing, can you monitor that, please?
Yeah, sure.
And let me know.
Sure.
Right. So the options are Desert National Park, Great Himalayan National Park, Marine National Park. D is none of these are protected areas, and E, all of these are protected areas. So any answers? And yeah, no Googling. I can see you. So take a guess. There's a reason why we're doing this. Any answers? Anybody?
C.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody responded.
Yes, Ritik, option A. Raghav sir, we lost your
Okay,
voice.
so time is about to be up.
You lost your voice again.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Hold on. Yeah.
I think
so. Yeah. So any other answers? We got A from Hrithik. Anybody else?
Yes, C as well from. Okay, there's somebody from C. And Andrea B, Sai D and E, Vignesh E, Arati D, and Sagarika E.
Okay, great. So that's interesting. We have a lot of good collection. So I just want to know, Blessing, who answered E first? The last option.
The E was first answered by
Vignesh,
Sai.
was it? Or Sai?
Sai.
Right. So Sai is correct. All of these, the Desert National Park, the Great Himalayan National Park, and Marine National Park are actually protected areas in India. And now Sai is going to tell me which districts are these in. Right, Sai? So you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Make a guess. It's totally fine. You know, we are all learning here, so
yeah.
there's no judgments. Huh?
So the Desert National Park should be a district in Rajasthan.
Okay.
And because I know only one district's name, so I'm going to say Bhilwara.
Okay, right.
The Great Himalayan National Park should be, can be in anywhere from Kashmir to Arunachal.
Okay.
So I will say, given the population of wildlife in Uttarakhand and Himachal, it will be somewhere
Good
there.
guess.
I don't know of any district, so I'll just say Shimla or Dehradun.
Right.
And the Marine National Park should be in along the Deccan, along the coastline. So I'd say somewhere near the Gulf of Mannar region. So maybe a district in Tamil Nadu.
Right. Thank you, Sai. So who was the second person who answered E, Blessing?
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
E was then answered by Sagarika Chaudhary.
Sagarika, do you have anything to add to what Sai said?
Sorry, my apologies. Then it was answered by Vignesh and then by Sagarika.
Okay, so Vignesh first. Vignesh, any points you want to add to this?
So Marine National Park would be somewhere around Gujarat.
Right. Gujarat. That's right, Vignesh. Yeah. That's correct.
Yes, so, I think.
Yeah. That's right. That's absolutely correct. So Marine National Park, it looks, as you know, as Sai said, a very educated guess. It could be probably around the coast because it's marine, so it should be around the coast. But it's actually Gujarat. We'll talk about it. And Sagarika, anything else to add?
No, sir, I think we've covered everything.
Anything? Okay, right.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the answer. All of you got, pretty much covered it. Desert National Parks are two districts. That's Jaisalmer and Barmer. And there's an entire question in the GSE, General Studies Prelim exam on the Desert National Park. So that's the reason why I brought this out. Then the Great Himalayan National Park is in Himachal Pradesh, Kullu district. And Marine National Park is in the Kutch district in Gujarat. And Marine National Park, as you understand, the Kutch region is actually swampy area. So the sea creeps up to the swamps. It's actually wet, better than it sounds. And that's why it's actually marine. And the area around the Kutch area is protected and it's called the Marine National Park. So the reason why I asked this, that almost every year we have questions on national parks and sanctuaries. And we need to know their peculiarities. So for example, Desert National Park, there's a Great Indian Bustard. Great Himalayan National Park, there's mountain goat. The Marine National Park, you have turtles like olive ridleys, etc. So things like that, kind of course, me being a wildlife enthusiast, I particularly take this even more seriously. But then the reason why everybody should is because these questions are pretty much being asked. So everybody on your toes, and next time I want somebody else other than Sai, Vignesh, and Sagarika to answer. Right. And so we'll move on. So the next, what we'll do is we talk about introducing how the exam is framed like. So the overall structure, is most of you know, is that there's a prelim exam, which is 33% qualifying. So all you need to do is make sure that you get 33% of the answers correct. And that's more or less, I won't be talking too much about CSAT, which is the aptitude test. The other one is the GS, that's the general studies. And that's more relevant for us because it's part of the overall structure. Even in the mains, you have 4 papers. So talking about mains, you have the Q1 and Q2 represent the qualifying papers, which are, English language and an Indian language, and you need 25% both in both of them. And you have 4 + 2 + 1, that is 7 papers, 4 from general studies, 2 from your optional subject, and 1 is the essay. And these contribute to 1750 marks, right? Then there's a personality test, that is once you qualify the mains, you go for the interview. They have this, funky name called the personality test. It's never interview, it's personality test. So so that's how, you should take it. It's actually testing your personality from the time you walk in. You can actually feel eyes judging you, how you sit, how you speak, how you answer, how you take pauses, how you correct yourself, how you say sorry and thank you. Everything is being sort of monitored in a very, very subtle way. You'll never actually understand. You'll never be able to put a finger, okay, this is where I went wrong or right, but they're able to judge you. So we'll talk about personality tests as well, probably through questions, maybe in the end. And the reason for prelims and mains is that you need a holistic approach. You shouldn't think about it that prelims should be done separately and mains should be done separately. Or you shouldn't think that, okay, once I clear the prelims, I start with the mains preparation, because really there's not enough time. Okay, so especially general studies, it's always better that from day one, you start with prelims and mains preparation together, because the nature of questions is such that you'll not be losing out if you start preparing for general studies together. And I'll talk about it right now. The earlier pattern of prelims, maybe about 7-8 years back, was very direct questions. You would have questions like, which of the following is currency of South Africa? And you have A, B, C, D, and you know the answer, and you probably, you're through with that. Now it's different. They'll give you these questions. They'll say there's an ocean current across South African coast by this name A. This is statement number 1. Statement 2 is South Africa is part of the organization called BRICS. And third, they'll say that the administrative capital of South Africa is, let's say, Johannesburg. Now you have 1, 2, 3. There are 3 points, and then they'll say which of these statements are correct. So in effect, they've asked you the history, geography, economics of South Africa, and they have not just asked you merely the name of the currency. So now this is why I say that it needs to be a holistic approach, because you need domain knowledge. From day one, if you know about these various factors, getting into into the particular aspect of general studies, it will actually help you throughout the preparation, right down to the interview. So from prelims to mains to the interview, or rather the personality test, you have these 3 stages, and general studies is a common theme throughout. So one thing should be very clear, that this should be a strong point. Your optional is one way to score, yes, but then more often than not, this is the real reason that general studies, your preparation should be as much as watertight as it can be. And I'll talk about that as well. And of course, now the emphasis on current affairs. So, this is again a very common question, that what should we do about current affairs? Should we read magazines? Should we read newspapers? Which newspapers to read? We'll talk about that as well. And then the next point is that the syllabus is not very tough. It's not that the level of questions are going to be very difficult. No. General studies, the issue is the vastness of knowledge. You need to know the fundamentals of each domain. So let's say you have economics, you have history, you have geography, you have civics and politics, you have environmental science, you have science and technology. These are broadly the areas. So you need to have basics of all these as per the syllabus. So you get down to the syllabus, you understand that, okay, what are we talking about? What does history really have to teach me? Like ancient history, what do we have to study here? Medieval, so on. And the next point is that you go through the papers, the previous year's papers. And then you will understand the depth kind of questions you're asking, the nature of the pattern of questions, and then you will be able to more appreciate where your preparation needs to go. And the 7th point is choosing your optional. Now, why this is critical, I would also like to share that, during our times, there used to be 2 optional subjects and 2 mains papers. So we had 2 optionals. Mine were geology and philosophy. They were entirely, a choice which I made entirely based on, as the first, point says, interest. So ideally, there should be 2 factors which guide you choosing your optional. Either you should have an interest in that subject, or you have an expertise. Probably, you've done your bachelor's in that. Or both. If that happens, that's excellent. But at least one of them. And why this is important is that general studies will burn you out. You would need breaks. You would need a kind of a place where you can sort of break the preparation and do something constructive at the same time. So the optional gives you that chance. And secondly, if you're good enough, the optional will push up your score. So choosing an optional is very important for finally getting into the good score and getting selected. So the optional, we'll again take up questions maybe in the later. And before we move on, of course, there's another quiz. So I'll be relentless. People will get tired of me. That's what I want. Quiz 2. The question is, what does the term gold tranche refer to? The tranche word is actually French. It's actually tranche, but I didn't want to be a Frenchman here. So gold tranche refer to. The options are A, a loan system of the World Bank. B, one of the operations of Reserve Bank of India. C, a credit system of the World Trade Organization, or a credit system of the International Monetary Fund. Blessing, please keep an eye on who answers first.
Mansi has said D. Mansi Jantal is D.
Right. Okay, great. So Mansi, very good, very speedy answer, and it's correct. Mansi, are you an economics student?
Mansi, you can answer.
Mansi, you can answer. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So I'm not an economics student, but I worked with the finance and investment cell in my second year.
Right.
So
Wonderful.
then I worked with the case study.
So that's good. See, so every aspect of general studies can actually derive itself from your activities in college. So you do something. One of those. Is CPC still functional? I'm sure it works.
It is.
Yes,
Still there. Great. So that way, so that's the right answer, by the way. It is the credit system of the International Monetary Fund. And what it does is basically it asks these countries, everyone, whoever the member countries are, to sort of give gold reserves to the IMF. And whenever the country needs some kind of credit, they can, against that loan, they can avail that facility. So that is the answer. And also, this question was asked in 2020 prelims. So what I'm trying to answer through these quizzes is that they might seem just like quizzes, but eventually that's what it is. So it's not too difficult. You know the answer, and you'll probably get it. So it's not too difficult, really. You just need your preparation to be on the right track. So moving on, going to the boring parts again. How do we prepare for GS? And this, of course, is the behemoth. How to address it. So the first part is CSAT. CSAT will take very quickly. There's Arihant, a very standard book. And R.S. Agarwal for quantitative. People who want to be more adventurous and practice more maths, you can go for R.S. Agarwal. And otherwise, you can go ahead and Arihant CSAT, keep practicing your tests. What is most important is time yourself. That is very important, that throughout your CSAT preparation, really more than the accuracy, more than getting the answers correct, is whether you're able to answer the questions in the right time. Because it shouldn't happen that you feel that that you're confident that I know maths, I know English, I know reasoning, I should be able to crack it. And what happens on the exam is you take too much time in one comprehension, and you'll end up skipping some questions, and that just puts you in a very dangerous or precarious situation. So that shouldn't happen. You should be confident that whatever paper comes, you would be able to answer that in the given to us, right? So that is the only thing which I want to talk about CSAT. Of course, if there are any specific questions for CSAT, we'll take it up later. But as of now, this is all I have to say. Then general studies, my formula for GS is it is dynamic plus static knowledge. The dynamic portion is the current affairs, and the general knowledge is the static portion. Now, why do I differentiate between these two? Current affairs is something which is happening on a daily basis. You get news, you get some kind of elections happening, some kind of new discovery happening, something landing on Mars. So for instance, all these things are happening in the current affairs. The general knowledge is the static part of it. So that is the principles behind what is happening. So for example, let's say the RBI did some interest rate policy on interest rates. Do you know what the rates are? What is the reverse repo rate? What does it do? What does tweaking it do to the economy, etc.? That part comes in the general knowledge. Similarly, if there's some election happening, let's say for the governor, and do you know what the powers of the governor are in a state? What does the governor what does the governor do? What are the executive powers, the legislative powers, etc.? That is the static portion. So what is actually happening is that on one hand, you have news coming, which may not be spelling out these things, but it is expected that if it is a news item, you need to know the basics behind it. And that's where the preparation of general studies become extremely crucial, because it is not just limited to reading the newspaper. You need to do a little bit of research on what led to that news item, right? And this extremely important point I'll talk about when we're talking about making notes for general studies. And that's very important. So as I said, both integrated must be prepared simultaneously. And by simultaneous, how do you ensure that this is simultaneous? you make files instead of registers. I would say you make files, and files meaning loose papers, right? So for example, you have one file for economics, one file for history, one file for, the basic domains, let's say 7-8 files. And each file, you would have a separate sheet of paper for a particular topic. So for example, let's say there's something on cyclones. There's a cyclone which hits the Bay of Bengal. So you make a topic that this particular cyclone was, on this particular date, you make that brief note about that cyclone. At the same time, you make notes of the geographical principles of what causes a cyclone. How does a cyclone form? So you have that piece of news at one place. At the same time, you have very clearly what made that cyclone, and also the nomenclature. There's a specific pattern of naming cyclones. So what is the way these cyclones are named? You make a note of that as well. Maybe not at one go. That's why you make a file. So after 2 months, you read something again about cyclones. What do? You add another sheet to that same place. And that's what makes, at the end of the preparation, what will happen is anything related to cyclones would be found in one place. You would have all the news items in one place. You would have all the basics in one place. Anything else you want to add, you can all add to that. So once you know that you have cyclones in one place, any question on cyclone comes, chances are you'd be able to answer it correctly, because you have probably gone through the entire basics, made sure that the news items are in place. So you know what is the relevance of it, the current part of it. At the same time, you have the static knowledge in place. So when you're reading your NCRTs, for example, and you read something about cyclones, you make a note there, right? So that the source of GS, as I said, past year's papers, you cannot dispense. That's the most important thing to understand what the pattern is. Once you go through the past year's papers, only then you'd be able to appreciate that exactly what your preparation is. Will I be able to answer this kind of question if it comes, So that is the kind of question you need to ask, past year's papers. Second is newspapers, which I recommend normally is Hindu. That's one thing. And the second is a paper of your choice, anything. But for newspapers, what is extremely important for people who have already started preparation, and people who want to, this is more like a habit. And this is something which you need to do on a daily basis. There's nothing else in the entire preparation which needs to be done daily except newspapers. So that is something which you need to do every day, without fail. And there's a reason why. If you start doing research for every news item, every relevant news item, it will take some time. And let's say you skip 2-3 newspapers. What happens is that on the 4th day, you will not be able to cope up with the previous 3 years' newspapers. You would probably not be able to, understand what happened in those 3 years. And it is going to be a little difficult. And plus, your other preparation is going to suffer. So this is something you sort of take it as your, daily routine, that I need to complete my newspaper. And the relevant parts, and what do I mean by relevant? You delete any political news, you delete any entertainment news, sorry, but that's how it is. You delete any sports news. That's not very relevant, because you don't have many questions directly coming from sports, unless you are a sportsman and you want to read about it, that's different. And you delete any information which is too localized. So you must remember that somebody in Kanyakumari would be also preparing, and somebody in Lucknow would also be preparing. So they would need to have some kind of correlation. There's this kind of minimum, bar for language, knowledge, and they cannot expect you to know something which is happening particularly in that city, and how is that relevant for the entire nation. So you have to make sure that you are not reading very localized news, because it needs to have some. It needs to be an item which is having some kind of national impact. And that's very important why you are shifting to the newspaper. So then you'll see that probably around 25 to 30% only remains, for newspapers. The remaining 70% is not really relevant. It might be important otherwise, but it's not relevant for the UPSC preparation, So that is something extremely important. Keep that in mind. That will save a lot of time. And in that time, you would be able to do quality work for that remaining 25%. You would be able to give, that the minimum kind of attention and the kind of research that needs to go with each news item. Normally I do that every day. Every time I have a lecture on civil service, I actually take up the newspaper for that particular day. And I ask everybody to do the same. And then I, sort of tell them that, okay, what do you think is relevant and why? So that kind of, so that you do that exercise today, or you can always reach out to me, and whenever any question, you can always get back to me. So that kind of habit, once you do that, in a week or two time, you would be able to appreciate. You would be actually able to see that you were wasting a lot of time by reading items which are not really relevant, which really can be skipped, and will save a lot of time, because time is paramount.
I just had one question.
Yes, please, Les.
So what happens when people are working? Like I used to prepare for UPSC as well, and I used to go through websites online that would give you by the end of the day almost like I think 70% of what you otherwise take out time and read and write. So I would completely depend on that. Is that a bad option to do? And I would majorly do it on a Saturday and Sunday because then I'm totally occupied.
Absolutely correct. See, correct. That's very true. So what I'll do is, so Saturday, Sunday, mostly I understand, that's the limitation. In fact, a lot of people would be working and they wouldn't have time, that kind of time. But as you would see later, there's something which I will be taking up this question lesson. So don't worry, this will be answered and answered in a very, very particular way. I've already decided how to answer it. So it will be coming in the slide, right? So that way, newspapers, otherwise, this is how it is. You go about finishing newspapers in this way. Then you have books, which we'll be talking about. Then you have magazines, which again, we'll be talking about, some online resources, classes, of course, which, a lot of people talk about. And now we'll, take up each topic, each of those, headings, separately. Past newspapers you've done. Newspapers, 2 dailies, the Hindu and one another. Not every news is important, which you talk. Filter, create linkages, complete the topic. Now, linkages is not one thing which I didn't speak about. So that's something which you can, sort of understand that each topic, even though, let's say you have, let's say you had the cyclone example, and it hit a particular city or hit a particular geographical location. So normally what we do is we'd be, okay, fine. So the cyclone comes, hits, we understand how a cyclone works, how it is named, chapter closed. But there's something which we have skipped. And the thing which we skipped is, what was the crucial or what was something, peculiar to that geographical location? What if it happened to be the place where, let's say, it's closer to, let's say, Puri or Bhubaneswar, and there's a religious connotation to it, and there's a historical connection to it. So then what if that particular news item comes? And that exactly, that's a lot of time, that's what happens. We would tend to skip the relevant, this part, and later we'll have a question on Jagannath Puri. There'll be a question on when it was built, who built it, etc. So history comes in very unexpectedly. So that is something which you can associate, that you can immediately, when you're reading a topic, be creative, think a little outside the box, and adopt that topic. Okay, what if I'm able to set the question paper on this? What if I was a person making the question paper? Would I ask a question on Jagannath Puri? Would I ask a question on the Bay of Bengal? Would I ask a question on the ocean currents there? That kind of question, if you sort of answer, you would see that you are actually completing a lot of things. And what is going to happen is when you eventually come to that chapter of history, it will be a revision for you because you've already done that. So that way, if you create linkages, you would have, again, by linkages, I mean, it will go in that history file in a separate page. But linkage, you could probably make a star and say, refer history on page so-and-so, or refer history to notes so-and-so. You create a linkage that way, but its notes should go in that particular file. So that way, it'll, it's very systematic. You'll be covering each topic, and there'll be multiple opportunities for you to revise because there'll be a lot of cross linkages throughout news. So that is how the note strategy works. And the next part, which I skipped about the newspaper, is the editorial. And a lot of people ask that, is editorial important? Because it's a lot. There's a lot of writing going on, and there's a lot of reading which is required. And again, there are some editorials which are relevant and some which are not. So again, you decide from that point that, is it relevant to the UPSC syllabus? If yes, you go ahead and do, let's say, your essay and mains answer writing preparation from that. And how do you do that? You read a particular editorial, and let's say it, it had, say, 1,000 words, let's say 2,000 words. And you decide by that you read, let's say in the morning, you read that article. In the evening, you write a 200-word essay on that same topic, right? So this will help you summarize. It will help your précis writing. Every day you're actually practicing writing. That is very important. And that's what answers your question 2, Blessing, that writing a particular topic or writing a particular information reinforces that information in your brain like no other. And there's a simple reason for it. We as children, when we are in, in nursery or in the preschool, what were we taught? How were we taught to learn things? By writing. So your brain is literally, there's a scientific reason for it, that, all these years, like till college, you've learned everything by writing. So Black Mirrors, for those who watch Netflix, Black Mirrors are a strict no-no. At least I would not recommend it. So online resources, which means Black Mirrors, for those who haven't seen it, Black Mirrors means anything from laptops to mobiles to iPads. I'm not saying, I'm not being, like orthodox or anything, but the idea is that learning will only come when you have physical stuff in your hand. You're underlining it, you're writing it. Only then will those things go into your mind. What's otherwise going to happen is there'll be something called passive reading. You will read it. You would feel comfortable understanding the topic as well when you're covering it from a given black mirror. But at the end of it, after a week or two, you wouldn't remember the facts. It wouldn't register so well. Whereas if you've done these, if you've made notes and maybe refer to your black mirror, yes, you saw a screen, but you write that particular thing down as well. It takes some time, but you will eventually get fast. And that's the reason why editorial becomes important. Every day you're practicing speed. You have to write well, you have to write in a good handwriting, and that too in a particular time frame. A lot of us, at least my handwriting was horrible. My key takeaway from school was every teacher used to say that Raghav is known for his bad handwriting. That's how bad it was. And I had to especially take a lot of efforts understanding how to write, because it's something very basic. It's your presentation. So the examiner is going to see your writing, and he or she will judge you on the basis of what you've written and how you've written. He or she doesn't know that you are the master of this particular topic and you're the only one in the universe who knows the answer. He or she will only see what you've written, right? And how you've written it. So if you've written in such a way that it's not legible or it doesn't convey that you understood the topic well, then it lands up eating away your marks, right? So that's very important. And editorial, that's how I use the editorial for practicing my answer writing and practicing my handwriting as well. Right? So that's something which you can do. The next books is a list. You can probably take a screenshot of this because I don't need to read through this, but maybe the first part, that is the NCRT. So NCRT, I'm sure you've heard this a lot of times, that NCRT needs to be done, and it's something which is the foundation of civil service preparation, etc. The reason why it is important to cover this is that fundamentals. Like I mentioned earlier, that the fundamentals portion is very important, and you'll be stumped. The kind of questions they ask you, you'll be shocked, like, okay, this is so fundamental and I don't know the answer, So that's how it is. When you start off from the basics, from class 6, let's say history, geography, science. These are basics, you start from the class 6, and what you need to do is run through them. You probably know the answer. You've probably done a lot of it earlier, and you'll be comfortable going through it. What you need to do is, if there's some particular topic or point which you were not really clear on, or something which is new to you, or something which you thought you knew, but you have a different perspective now, you probably make a note of that, just that. So so what is going to happen is you have the entire NCRT summarized into 30 pages per syllabus, per book, or in fact per subject. That's more than enough. So if you have, let's say, 5-6 subjects, you have about 100 pages in your own handwriting, and that more or less summarizes your entire thing. Again, this will go in those files. You could probably, sandwich them between the relevant newspapers or news items. So NCRT needs to be done just to make sure that your basics are clear. You understand those fundamentals very clear from the very basic. And very importantly, do not do 11th and 12th science. That's not required. That's physics, chemistry, and biology. That's pretty much not required for UPSC. It becomes too technical. In fact, what would be recommended is when you come across a news item on science, you read up on that topic. That's better rather than covering the entire thing from 11th, 12th. But 11th, 12th, geography, history, economics are important, right? So, and then you have economic survey. And if you have any questions on this, you can ask me. That is geography, science, technology, etc., etc. So these are the books, which.
So I just, if you don't mind me interrupting.
Say, go ahead, tell me.
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of people speak about the atlas and using the atlas. And so recently I was just looking through the textbook and then looking at it with my atlas, but I never could figure out a way as to how you do the atlas or study or prepare the atlas.
Right. Good question, and that's very relevant also. That because atlas can't be read. It's something which is it's a graphic thing. What you need to do is make a map of any particular kind of something like this. I'm sorry, I'm spoiling book, but let's say you have let's say India, right? So you take a piece of paper, right? And you draw India in a very segmented way. You don't draw the real boundaries. You draw it like this, right? And you draw this, and you draw this, a very rough hand sketch, which broadly covers the entire thing, right? And then looking at the atlas, while you're doing, let's say you took up a particular state. This was an example of India. You could take up a particular state, let's say Gujarat, or let's say you take up a river system let's say Ganga Yamuna, or let's say Krishna Kaveri, and you need to understand what particular cities lie on that basin, or what particular sanctuaries or wildlife areas lie on that region. So then just draw that in rough, highlight those particular points, and that's how you do the atlas. You don't need to refer to the atlas again. Again, you make notes for that. Your topic on geography would be heading Andaman Islands, and you draw the the islands and make a small point on what those islands represent for you. What is so special about the Narcondam Island in Andaman? By the way, what is so important about Narcondam? Anybody? Any clue?
Sir, it's a volcanic island. A volcanic.
Are you sure? The only volcanic island in India is Barren Island.
It's a dead volcanic.
Yes, it's a dead volcanic. So it's actually not volcanic anymore. But the only volcanic island now is Barren. And Narcondam is actually famous for another reason. There's a particular hornbill bird species which is only found on that particular island. It's endemic to that island. It's called the Narcondam hornbill. So you could have a question again. What is based on that? So these kind of things, linkages. So once you're doing geography, you're doing a bit of biodiversity, a bit of science as well, that way. Right? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. We'll talk about Atlas maybe a little bit more later. So, and magazines, you have these online resources and classes. Okay, online resources. See, the idea behind online resources, as I said, Black Mirror, is only to understand and get a visual idea of what you're covering. So for example, you have this kind of yojana, or you have some kind of policy which the government has come up with, and you want to understand how is it really functioning. And many of these government websites have excellent data, and a lot of visual knowledge can be covered through these sites. So this will help you again register. So the point of all of this is actually making sure that the knowledge stays in this box. That's the idea. Because there's a lot of information flowing. And trust me, when you are preparing for general studies, your aim can never possibly be 100%. Your aim, of course, should be 120%, because you'll never be able to cover that much. You'll fall to 100%. By the end of it, you'll realize it's just 80%, and your performance is going to be 60 to 70%. And that, by the way, is the cutoff. That is exactly what it happens. So that's how the percentage keeps falling. So you start off with 100, 120 as your aim. You come up to 80. You actually land up to 70, and on the exam day, your performance is going to be definitely lower than what you thought it would be. So you have to prepare. You have to adjust for that margin. And I'm not discouraging anybody, but that's how it is. The final performance on the day of the exam, there'll be a lot of factors. You'd be stressed like hell. You'd be thinking about a lot of pardon my language, and you'd be thinking about how do I make sure that all of this gets completed in time. Am I answering correctly, etc. But the only thing which supports your final day is your preparation. A little bit of luck, but I would say that luck favors only those who have prepared hard enough, because only if you are used to the preparation, only if you are understanding what the nuances are, the final day you'd be having less stress, and your chances of your performance dropping would be lesser. It will definitely drop, but the percentage would be a little less. So that is extremely important, understanding what the exam stress is all about. So online resources, do it, but again, there's something called All India Recordings as well, the All India Radio, and there are a lot of interesting programs there. You can probably do it while going to sleep or something. Just read it, just listen to it, and it's something going in your head, and you'll probably retain it in some way. So these kind of things are soft, knowledge skills. You do them as a supplement, And classes. Now that's important, because a lot of people want to think about joining coachings, etc. So the idea is that the first time I joined 3 classes. I had philosophy classes, I had GS classes, I had physics classes. Initially, I had chosen physics as an optional, and I didn't get selected, because I hardly had time for myself. That's the kind of thing. I was not preparing. I was just attending classes, coming back, attending classes, coming back, and there was not much preparation which I was doing on my own. And the second year, I hardly attended classes, and thankfully everything went well, and selection happened. So my idea for classes is make sure it's doing value addition to you. It shouldn't be something because of peer pressure. It shouldn't be because something which everybody's doing, hence I should do. It's something which you should, as a person, understand that would I gain out of it if I go there, and would I be able to make sure that whatever I've studied, I'll be able to revise that and make sure that it's part of my notes, etc. If yes, then that's great. My suggestion, or my biggest the biggest advantage which I feel for classes is a schedule. You have to go, you have to attend at a particular time, you have to cover this particular part of the syllabus. Sometimes enforcing that schedule on your own becomes a little difficult. You might take liberty, like, okay, fine, I can skip this, maybe I won't study this today, or that kind of thing. But if you have a coaching, it sort of helps you to ensure that you're on the right track, you're covering everything, and you're revising everything. So that is one advantage. The second advantage is competition. You actually understand where you stand. There'll be a lot of mock tests happening, which of course you can take even without the coaching. You can already join the series, etc. happening. So that will ensure that you know that where how your performance is happening. Because trust me, that's exactly the pool which will be appearing for the final exam. So more or less, you'll be among those people, understanding what their strategies are, and this is part of the game. You have to understand that what's really relevant. Am I doing the right thing? Are mock tests helping me? Is my performance improving? What's Blessing, would you just tell me, had I completed the thing on coachings and classes? Mostly.
No.
Okay, so I was talking about classes, right? And
right.
The idea is that there are two basic reasons why you should join classes. A, that it helps you judge your performance, and there's this spirit of competitiveness. You're always interacting with people who are already preparing for it. And B, they give you a schedule which you can a routine which you can every day sort of follow and make sure that your entire syllabus gets covered. So that's basically about classes. And of course, if there are any specific questions, we'll again take it up. And of course, true to this webinar, there's another quiz. And here, which of the following are correctly matched? Okay, so this time, let me just revise. So who would answer? Vignesh, Sai, Sagarika, and Mansi, right? So now let's see who
and also
gets this answer.
Sumbul had rightly answered.
Huh?
Sumbul Naya.
Sorry? Okay, great. So that's the fifth person.
Yes.
Right. So which of the following are correctly matched, right? So the National Commission for Women is a constitutional body. Election Commission of India is a constitutional body. National Tiger Conservation Authority is a statutory body, and Securities and Exchange Board of India is an executive body.
2.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. The options now are 1 and 4 only. So this is where it gets tricky. 1 and 2 only, 2 and 3 only, and 2 and 4 only. And trust me, this is exactly the civil service exam pattern. This is exactly how they devilishly maneuver you to understand that, okay, you need to know all 4 of these. Only then you'll be able to answer the question correctly. So Blessing, any answers?
B.
B.
B, that's me, I'm saying, but Mansi says D.
Okay, Blessing says B. Okay. What else?
Mansi says D, and then just 1 second, sorry. So
okay.
Yeah, Mansi says D, Sai says D.
D, okay. And
Deepakash is D, Vedansh Tiwari is D, Khyati Chauhan is A, and Manas Kumar is D.
Okay. Okay. So great. I'm happy to inform that none of you are right. It was a difficult question, and it's tricky. You have to understand what the 3 things are. A little background about all of these commissions and these weird sounding agencies, and then we'll understand what they are. Okay. National Commission for Women was established by an act, and hence it's not a constitutional body. A constitutional body is something which is established by the Constitution itself, right? So the National Commission for Women, NCW, was established by an act, and hence it's a statutory body, right? The Election Commission of India, of course, is a constitutional body because you have a particular articles, the schedules, etc., which talk about it. So you know that this is established by the Constitution, under the Constitution. The third, the National Tiger Conservation Authority, is a statutory body because it is established in the Wildlife Protection Act. And of course, me being a wildlife enthusiast, I could not resist putting this here. The fourth one is the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI. And SEBI is also established under an act, the SEBI Act. And hence, that is also a statutory body, not an executive body. Right? So the correct answer is going to be, anybody now?
C, sir.
C, exactly. 2 and 3. That's the correct answer. Right? So I hope you got it. So you understand how knowing about each of them became extremely important here. Otherwise, what's going to happen is maybe you're sure of 2 or 3 of them, absolutely sure that this is the right answer, but you're not sure about the 4th one, right? That is where it gets a little tricky. So you need to understand that, okay, I have to be very clear that what these commissions and these authorities are doing, and hence I'll be able to answer. And also, very importantly, do not be waylaid by the fact that they are commissions and hence they should be constitutional. That's nothing. There's the nomenclature of it has nothing to do with their status. That is entirely on how they are created. So if they are established by the constitution, it's the constitutional body which is the highest. If they are established by an act of the parliament, that has to be a statutory body. And if it is established by something called an executive order, something which is not an act, but it's an order, something below the act, then it is called an executive body, right? So that is how this is the question on civics, but it could have been because 2 or 3 of these commissions were in the news. So you can have a question which combines all of them, and you have to answer all of them. I hope that's clear. So nobody gets discouraged. The idea is to inspire you, to make sure that you are on the right track, right? Okay, moving on. So there are certain do's and don'ts which we have for the overall preparation strategy. First one, of course, we have talked amply at. Blessing, I hope that answers you. That then I personally would recommend active reading, which is through notebooks or through underlining or through cutting newspapers and pasting them, making sure you're making those the traditional ways. Is always helpful, I feel, in making your preparation a little bit more robust. The second is underlining text, which is that's the reason why I made a separate point of it, because that's how important it is. When you're underlining and reading it, it actually registers more in your brain. I have seen this. A lot of times facts don't remain so clear, but once you underlining them, it sort of registers. Making notes, as we talked about, how we've done the strategy as well. So that's how the notes have to be made, separate files, etc. We talked about this. CSAT time tests, we talked about this. Yes, mains answer writing, watch for word limit. Now, this is something extremely important. So there's a word limit. You have these mains exams, and all of them have a particular word limit. Some of them have 200, some 250, some 150. I think there used to be a 10 or 20 word limit as well. Very short answers. There's a reason why those word limits are given. That they test you that you don't be able to switch between writing. So there could be a topic, mind you, there could be a particular topic, and you could have a variety of questions on the same topic. You could have a 200 answer for that. You could have a 20-word answer for that as well, right? So you need to be sure what you're writing is making sense and is only the relevant portion fitting in that word limit. And that comes by practice. Every day you're doing this essay writing in the evening, or every day you're practicing these answers, getting close to that goal of making sure that you're watching the word limit. Second reason is that the word limit are there for a reason, and that is, if you write too much, trust me, you will not have time left. It's so point to point that you literally have to make sure that every answer is falling in that bracket of that particular word limit prescribed. If you go beyond that, it will definitely compromise in some other answer. You will end up having lesser time for something else. So you have to run through it. It's a practice which you need to do. For example, every day when you're writing on these A4 sheets, you know that every line which you write has X number of words. So the final day, you would know that this much space is 40 words, right? Or this much space is 100 words. So that day you won't have to count. You won't have to literally see that, okay, how many words have I written in this answer? I'm counting A to Z. You don't need to do that, because the whole year you've practiced and you know that how much space your writing occupies. Right? So every day when you're practicing these answers, you already know that how much space you need to write for a particular answer. That is very important. You have essay writing, the general tips which I talk about. There's the topic, the essay map, and the structure. There are 3 basic points which I want to talk about. The first is selecting the topic. So as with the optional, take a topic which you are interested in, which you can write a bit of yourself about. You sort of associate with the topic, and take something which you have an expertise on. Of course, if it's both, then you're really lucky that you have that option. But if not, then at least one of those 2. Because we need content in the essay, and we need relevant content. It shouldn't be that you're writing and beating around the bush and not able to make sense of what is happening. That's where the structure comes in. The structure of the essay, as we've done in school as well, we have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Very basic, we already know about it. So what's important is how you introduce that topic, how you close that topic. So the way I used to write the essays, and I found it really interesting, was you start the essay with a very realistic picture. You go ahead with full on negative. This is what is happening. Desh mein ye chal raha hai, ye kharab hai, wo kharab hai. Aap ye sab bolo. That's how you started, because you're addressing the problems. You're creating a drama that this is the situation as of now. And then you discuss that topic, build upon it. What are your solutions? What are your views? What are the solutions which have been proposed by others, etc.? You analyze that topic. That is your body. And in the end, you always become idealistic, that we will look forward to making sure that this problem is resolved. You never should end that. You should never end vice versa. You should never start off idealistic and end realistic, because that leaves a bitter taste in the mouth. Even though that's, that's how it is. It's fact. But as bureaucrats, you're here to address the problem, right? To offer solutions. So that's how it should reflect in your essay as well. End with a positive note, end with a solution, end with the fact that you're positive that these things will happen, that the government policies are being taken care of, that things are happening. That's how it is. You become a little diplomatic in the end. That's the polite way to say it. But that's how an essay should be. Practically sounding. It should start off realistic, analyze the situation, and end on a positive note. That's the overall structure, right? And the essay map. Now, what is this map? For the first 10-15 minutes, which I used to do, and it really helped me, in overall structure of my essay, was that I used to take up, a sheet of paper on the sheets which are given to you, and you mark it as essay map, or whatever you write it, whatever your topic is. At the center of the sheet, you write whatever it is, the keyword. Let's say poverty, for instance, or let's say education, whatever it is, could be anything. And then you start drawing issues or dimensions which are associated with that. So for example, poverty, you have the economic angle, the social angle, and let's say education, then you have again these different dimensions, the logistical problems, the systemic problems, the financial problems, and then you have the positive solutions, that what's happening, what are NGOs doing, what the governments are doing, etc. So this kind of, or you could have a comparison with other countries, other states, all of that, you start making arrows from the central point, and then you make sub arrows from those other points, right? That I think the idea. So what is happening is you're making sure that you have this entire map in front of you, and you spend 10-15 minutes on it. Make sure that all of what you're thinking is right down in the paper. That entire structure of what you want to write is there. Also, you add quotes. You add any other points which come to you. Let's say a statistic which you read recently, relevant to that topic. You write it there in case you don't forget incorporating it. Then, very importantly, you detach that sheet, keep it in front of you. While you're writing the essay, you might have certain points coming to you in your head, but it's not the right time to write that. So quickly jot it down in the essay map, so that later you can make sure that you've covered that point which you thought of. A lot of times, you're thinking of things that, okay, I need to cover this, I need to make sure that I be able to write it. But at the time when you're writing, it's not the right flow, or it's not the right place where the point needs to be. So you make sure you jot it down in the essay map. So once you've done it, you tick mark all those points, make sure that you covered it, and that sort of will take care of the overall structure which you have, right? So that's my tip for the essay. And of course, you have the favorite, the hot topic, the personality test, the general tests. This is of course relevant for all of us. The interview is sort of something which a lot of people look forward to. Some people which they want to make sure that they're putting the right impression. Really, it's all about being yourself, a little polished version of what you are. So it doesn't have to be something very different from what you are, because that will show through. At the same time, if you are very opinionated, or if very, let's say, if not, you might be diplomatic, both ways. None of this should show directly on the face of it. If they're asking you a question, you should answer yes or no, but it shouldn't be a very firm yes or no. That yes, I am the only one, and I'm the authority who says that this is the right answer. It shouldn't be like that. But at the same time, yes, it could be yes, it could be no. That shouldn't be the answer as well. So make sure that your answer is in the affirmative or in the negative, and you have a fairly good logic behind that answer. You'll be able to justify it, because normally, what I always say, the personality test is not really there. They're not asking the questions. It's you who's asking, who's making them ask those questions, because your response to their in questions will drive the entire interview. So make sure that your responses are, you don't volunteer too much information, because what's going to happen is that eventually they'll keep asking. and they'll, you land up in a fix that, okay, I don't know the answer beyond that. Because see, questions can be asked at any given time. They may not even know the answer to that. They may not even be aware of the subject which you're talking about, but they can always ask. So for instance, they might talk about Mars, let's say. What was the latest, the achievement of NASA, for example? What do you think about it? Should India do it as well? And you say, yes, India should do it. Then you say, but what about Mangalyaan? Mangalyaan, do you think Mangalyaan is not a good idea? Or was it a failure? What do you think? And then, the cross questioning will continue. So make sure that you're answering as much as has been asked. Don't volunteer too much information, because then that will lead to further cross questions, and that will eventually eat away your time. Your idea should be that all your dimensions, whichever positive points are highlighted in front of them. They shouldn't just go into the Martian aspect and forget everything else. Let's say your strong point was education, or let's say government policy, and you'll end up speaking only about Higgs boson. So how would that even make sense? So make sure that don't get into arguments. Do not volunteer too much information. Be to the point. And something which I recommend really is taking a 2 to 3 second pause before answering. It may look a little weird, it may look awkward that you're pausing, but I did it consciously in my final interview. I did it, and it really helped me. Just 2 3 seconds, your brain automatically arranges some way to speak it. That's how it happens. Those 2 3 seconds are very crucial, because your response becomes a little more balanced. You have a little structure to it. It's not a reply, it's not a reaction, it's a response. So you'll be able to articulate it better. So that's how the personality test goes, and they are not going to test you on the subject. They're more testing on your aptitude and attitude towards it. So they might have questions on the subject, but really they're not testing that. They're testing how you're answering it, how passionately, or how if you do not know the answer, that's happened to me a lot of times, and how politely you can say, sir, or ma'am, I'm not sure, I don't know the answer, I'm not aware of it. So you can always politely say no. If they ask you to guess, go ahead and guess, but don't guess by yourself. They shouldn't think that, okay, he doesn't know, he's just bluffing, or she doesn't know, she's just trying to make a point that she knows everything. Shouldn't be that. So when they're asking a question and you do not know the answer, you say don't know. If they say, okay, if you had to guess, what would it be? Then you go ahead, give your opinion, but don't give your opinion or answer to something which you're not sure of. So it's always better to say, sir, oh, ma'am, I don't know, or you could say that if I had to take a guess, it would be this, that way. Right. So that brings us to the last quiz for today. And this is, okay, here. Which of the following are correct observations regarding the PSLV and GSLV? I hope people are aware of at least what PSLV and GSLV are, and here are the options. PSLV has 3 stages. So,
sir, could
yes,
you please change your slide? Oh, now it's visible.
Visible? Yeah. Can you see now?
Yes, I can.
So PSLV has 3 stages, GSLV has 4. PSLV launched satellites into geosynchronous orbits. GSLV launches communication satellites. None of the above, all of the above. You have these 5 options. And Blessing, please tell me, what are the responses?
I think the first response is by Vignesh. He says C. Sorry, Anurag says A, and then Vignesh. Okay. Supreet A.
Okay, right.
Khyati A.
Okay. Okay.
Mansi A.
Right.
Sai Karthik B, and Manas Kumar C, Navneet C.
Okay. So Vignesh and Manas got it right. It's C. GLV communication satellites. Right? PSLV has 4 stages. GSLV has 3. So the first one is incorrect. It's the GSLV which launches satellites into geosynchronous orbits. And that's why the geosynchronous orbits are used for communication satellites. So what are these geosynchronous orbits? It's a huge sounding word. It essentially means that when a satellite is launched in a geosynchronous orbit, it orbits with the Earth. So it appears to stay fixed above a certain point. So it's ideal for a communication satellite. You need a particular object in space to communicate right above you. If it's moving, then you won't be able to communicate well, right? So the communication satellite is right above the particular point of the Earth. And that's why the GSLV launches these into geosynchronous orbits. So answer was C. Right. So good. I'm happy that Manas also. So was it Mansi earlier and this is Manas, or am I getting the names wrong?
Yes, yes, right.
Okay, great. Manas, good. Need to see you too, Manas. It's okay. It's fine. All right. So moving on. So that last quiz. And then we'll talk about some concluding, and then we, proceed to the interact session that we have. First one is get creative. Use the best stationery, coding, makes your journey, because it's going to be hell of a time. This 1.5 years when you're preparing, it's going to be very different from whatever you're doing in life. Because trust me, this opportunity to learn so many things very rarely comes. Once you're in, the job, you don't get time to, indulge so much in studies. And in college, you have a particular structure of studying, particularly right before the exams. So all of that is very different, in this journey. It's going to be a lot of studies, a lot of work, a lot of different topics which you haven't really thought about, and learning about them will actually shape your personality for anything else which you're going to do. It doesn't have to be civil service, So that's the first part, and you make it, as creative as you can, your own way of how you want to study it. The second is be flexible, but not too much. You should be flexible. So, for example, let's say you have decided that this particular week you'll be covering, let's say, a chapter of economics, and let's say you'll be covering a map of geography, and let's say you're doing a particular aspect of technology as well. And maybe by the end of the week you realize, okay, I couldn't do economics. I thought I would be able to, but I couldn't. But that's fine. You need to give that much breathing space. It doesn't have to be a daily schedule. It doesn't work that way. You cannot possibly have a daily schedule that I'll be able to finish this much every day. It's very ridiculous. I think it's very tough to have a daily schedule. Some people might work with it. That's great. But at least personally for me, and for a lot of people I know, that targets work well in a week or a 10-day time, or maybe 4 night time, but not beyond that. So daily is a little restricted. Week is fine, but a month becomes very open-ended. You shouldn't normally target for something that this should be, because month is just 12 months. So that's not going to be really effective. And the third is each day is not the same, which means that your productivity is bound to wax and wane. Someday you'll be covering a lot of ground. Someday you'll be like, yikes, I didn't do anything at all. It's possible. And so the idea is that your graph is going through ups and downs, but let the overall trajectory be upward. That's what is important. Every day, make sure that the day is counting. Every day you're adding something new. So by either revising an old topic, right? Or let's say you took up a difficult topic which you thought that, okay, this is something which I haven't really understood the topic very clearly, so you take it up. Or let's say you practice writing, or you solve a paper, you do anything. And if you don't want to take up a new topic, you can do any of these things, So be persistent and don't despair. There's definitely going to be ups and downs, but overall the trajectory should be upward. And very importantly, you should find a stress buster, whatever it is. And use it, don't abuse it. It could be a Netflix, it could be a pizza, it could be a phone call, it could be anything, Just find your short break, whatever it is. And so make sure that you have that. So whenever you're getting, like overwhelmed with this whole preparation thing, take that break, So use it occasionally and ensure that it doesn't become excessive. Shouldn't be that, it should be just that break. So that phone call shouldn't go into hours and hours. It should be like, okay, I'll take a 15-20 minutes break. Or, if I eat a pizza, it shouldn't be that every day. Your health is very important. So all of that is important, Prioritize, make sure that you're having this, using that particular stress buster to your benefit. And last, that this is not the last thing in the world. That's very important for people who are, giving everything to this, especially make sure that even if it doesn't work out, it's totally fine. It's in there are a lot of things, and trust me, this life is so vast, and there are so many things happening around the world that this is something very, very peculiar, very small, So if it doesn't work out, it's totally fine. Works out great. If it doesn't work out, well, you have 1 year of preparation to you, 1 year of personality development, which nobody can take from you. So that is something, so be sincere in that 1 year, whatever 1.5 year preparation you're doing, make sure that everything, what you have, your efforts should be genuine, because the results are not in your hands. What is in your hands is preparing for it sincerely and making sure that you give your best shot. So, if you don't get selected, it's the UPSC's bad luck, not mine. So, you did your job, right? Just be confident about that. And I think that sort of summarizes it. Here is my, galaxy of social media address. You can reach me out anytime. And of course, this is an interactive session. So, you can please go ahead, ask questions, unmute yourself, listen, however you want to tell me.
Sure.
I'm at your disposal.
Thank you so very much, Raghav. It's really, I think this was a very different lecture we've had. This was more like sitting with a UPSC aspirant and, having a group study sort of a thing. It was much less like a speaker. But I think thank you for this. This was excessive.
I didn't want it to be intimidating. I don't want it to be like a lecture. I wanted it more like a, kind of conversation. Like, what people go through. So now the conversation is more open. Yeah. And people, I can see a lot of people. So just ask any questions. Go ahead.
Sure. Before you ask questions, could you please raise your hand in the group or put your name in the chat box? It's easy for me to see that way. And then I could make sure that you're able to raise your question with sir. But also remember that you need to be short with your questions because we're running out of time. That's one thing. But just to start,
I'm testing you on this as well. Let's see what your questions are framed.
Sure. No, but just to ask this question to begin with, if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Raghav sir?
Yeah, I can. Tell me. I didn't get you the last one. Blessing, did you? Yeah, say something. Sorry.
Yes, I was just wondering if we could deactivate the PPT, we could actually see you better. I mean, I can see everybody.
Yes.
On the,
Yes.
Just.
I'll, I think it's unpaused now.
Yes, perfect.
Right.
So, okay, I had some question I forgot, but I'll ask you later. So, Queen, go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sukhveen, I can't hear you. Sukhveen, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Just check yourself. Yeah. Yeah. I think that could be a problem. No, Sukhveen. I can't hear you. Blessing, can you hear her?
No, I can't hear her as well. Sukhveen, question while Sukhveen works on the technical aspect of it.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Sukhpreet, go ahead. Good evening, Sukhpreet.
Thank you for a very wonderful interactive session.
My pleasure, Sukhpreet. Hope it helps.
Sir, you stressed on coaching centers. I have a question regarding the coaching center. Sir, what should be the study timetable be like while you're attending coaching classes, and how much time in the day should we fix for studying during the classes, and what should be the study focused on? Should it be the syllabus they are covering on, or should it be on our own pace on things we are interested in covering?
Right. Very good question and very relevant, Sukhpreet. In fact, that exactly sums up what I wanted to talk about coaching. So that's very relevant. See, timings is something which is entirely up to you. Because a lot of people have this, peak in the daytime. So, for example, a lot of people are morning people, so they'll be able to understand graphs better in the mornings. Some people are, more night persons, so they'll be able to understand better in the night. So, I would suggest that coaching time is something which you give on a daily basis, but your preparation time should be the time when you're at your peak. You shouldn't waste that time with the coaching time. That's something very important. So, if your peak time is morning, make sure that your coaching is in the evening. If your peak time is in the evening, take the coaching in the morning. So because coaching is something where you have to forcibly learn. You don't have to be at your peak, at your best, because you'll be, you are sort of as a spectator. There'll be somebody there speaking to you, teaching you. So you don't have to be really at your best at that time. But when you're home, that's when your peak should be. You shouldn't be tired when you come back home. Your preparation time, nobody should snatch. That is the only takeaway. That whatever your peak time is, you discover that, you see that, on your own, prepare every day and see that, okay, this is the time when I feel, okay, I'm comfortable with, I can learn a lot of new things. I'm reading a lot of stuff and it's all of it is going in my mind. So then you decide that that's your peak time. Make sure that you're in your peak time, you're at home, not tired, and you study every day that time. So Sukhpreet, does that answer your question? And the hours and everything is entirely up to you. The pace is entirely up to you. So make sure that every day, whatever the coachings are doing, you revise that, in a short time. But eventually give yourselves that time, whatever it is, that your peak time should be your own time, your own pace, your own syllabus or schedule which you have planned. That shouldn't be disturbed. Coaching is just part of it. It's a supplement. It's a tool. So that shouldn't take main stage. That is my suggestion. Right, Subi?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank you. The next question is by. Yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
yes. Finally, we can hear you.
Good evening, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, for ethics, like you mentioned, one of the sources as the ARC reports, and for economics, we can refer the economic survey. So how should one go on studying them, because they are quite vast sources?
Quite voluminous. Yes, absolutely correct. Very good question, and it's important as well. So the idea is, economic survey, a lot of times what help, at least what I covered, was they have these fact boxes. They have these, so for example, they have this yojanas or policies or a particular kind of new initiative which the government has taken, and they explain it in a box. That is my takeaway from the economic survey, because otherwise it's a lot of statistics, like Q1 mein ye hua, Q2 mein ye hua, percentages, etc. A lot of statistics don't really make sense. You don't have to really code them, but understanding the concepts are very important. So you sift out that information. Similarly with the ARC, there'll be a lot of suggestions, recommendations by the members, etc. You just look at the summaries. What are they really saying? And again, very importantly, make your known notes. That is very important. So what you do is you take the economics survey, extract that information, make your notes, and throw it away. That's exactly what you need to do with magazines as well. Don't keep a stack of magazines. I forgot to mention this, that when you have these magazines, make sure that they don't collect. You, on a monthly basis, extract whatever information you have and remove that magazine. It shouldn't be that you have these material on your desk waiting to be read. That actually causes a lot of pressure on you, that okay, I have this much stuff to be still done. So don't do that to yourself. On a monthly basis, finish it off, and make sure that you have your notes ready. Right?
Thank you.
Right, Supreet. Most welcome.
Next question is by Aarti. Aarti, go ahead with your question. Please keep it very short. Thank you.
Aarti, I hope I was able to, now that you know that GS is not GITSETI, right?
Yes, better. That is called a progress.
Good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned about the time, like daytime, night owls or morning persons. But then I really have no idea. I'm completely clueless on like the ideal, I hope there's no ideal duration, but what is the minimum time I should actually,
hours.
Put that complete focus on?
Okay, I was waiting for this question, because this is where I happily narrate a story about myself, and I hope you will get what I'm trying to say. So in college, I was in a lot of activities, and I was hardly preparing for my exams. I was just preparing that one day before. My stamina to study was not really that great. It was just about half an hour, and after half an hour I used to be looking for breaks. So in the initial times, I was having a lot of problems in understanding how do I cover the syllabus, because every half an hour I needed a break, and it's very difficult to concentrate, because I never had the habit. The 3 years of college really ruined me, because I didn't have that habit of studying so much, like 7 to 8 hours at a stretch. I couldn't imagine doing that. So initially it was very difficult. Then I remember that, okay, fine, we'll do this, we'll do it. So from half an hour, it became 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, gradually my study hours started increasing. And I distinctly remember one day I got up in the morning. So you can see this is all rehearsed. I've done this so many times, but I love saying this, In the morning, I got up, I had a heavy breakfast, right? And after that, I realized that when I, sort of got away from the books, it was dinner time. And I didn't realize that nearly about 8 to 10 hours had passed. And I didn't realize, I didn't even get up for a break. That's when I realized that, okay, Raghav, you're in the zone. You're doing the right thing. You're on the right track. I had that confidence that, that this time things should go, in the right track. So what I feel is 8 to 10 hours is a lot, it doesn't come overnight. But once you start preparing, any kind of figure from 3 to 4 non-stop till 8 to 10, depends entirely on your personal, capacity, your stamina is fine. But minimum 3 to 4 hours, and I'll tell you why. There's a reason. There's a scientific reason for it. When you get down to studying, the first half an hour doesn't really count, because you're getting into the zone. You're understanding those things. The peak comes after that. And if your peak is too little, if the amount of the time is too little, by the time you get into the zone, you're always saying, okay, let's quit. Okay, ho gaya. I'll not be able to do many more. So that's how it is, you need, and that comes by practice. That's like physical activity. Stamina is something which is, the study stamina is exactly like that. It'll come through practice. So your brain needs to exercise, and eventually you will be surprising yourself. Trust me, you will be surprised that I will be able to cover this much. I was surprised. I was the most surprised person on earth when I started doing this. So that's how 8 to 10 hours come up. So that's how it is. It's something natural. It will happen naturally once you're into the preparation. It'll come. But then again, there'll be some days when you're not able to do that. You don't have to be hard on yourself. It's fine. Go ahead. Every day is not the same.
Thank you.
I hope that answers you.
Manas Kumar, go ahead, Manas.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much, sir, for the session. It
Great.
was really
I'm so happy to see the map behind. UPSC aspirant hai, beech mein map laga hua hai. That's very good. Tell me, Manas.
So my question is with regards to editorial and essay. So you suggested a tip that how we can read the editorial on a daily basis, and later in the evening write on that editorial, recollect those points and add something more. So I'm a person who loves to read more, but when it comes to writing, my parents also mentioned this to me, that is one area where you will fall behind when you're preparing. So I don't want to feel overburdened on a daily basis. I have classes as well. So can you suggest more tips and tricks like this, wherein I can write on a daily basis and prepare?
Absolutely, good idea, and it's nice that you mentioned this, because Manas, a lot of people would have that problem, and a lot of us are avid readers, and we're not able to, when it comes to writing, like who's going to write this much, it becomes difficult. So it happens. It's natural. What you need to do is that, if not the editorial, then at least the newspaper, your usual articles which you are supposed to read, at least make sure that you're making those notes. That is important. If the editorial doesn't happen, then at least fine. You can at least make notes of those editorial, but make sure that the minimum you do is those the news items which have to be covered every day. That is extremely important, because you need to have a kind of schedule for daily writing. That is, and that you associate with the newspaper, because newspaper is something which you're doing every day. So you associate writing with that. So every day you're doing newspaper and a bit of writing. So writing is extremely important, and it will take some time. Trust me, Manas, it will not come overnight, especially for somebody who loves to read and not write so much. So it'll happen. But you need to consciously make that choice that I need to gear up for this, because at the end, the exam is all about writing, especially the mains exam. So prelims is all about strategy. Prelims is about not getting eliminated, but mains is about getting selected. That's a difference. There's a slight perspective difference in the two because of the numbers. Prelims is about 6-7 lakhs of people, whereas mains is just about 24,000-28,000 people. So there it's you need to shine by your writing. So you have to make sure. And another thing which I forgot to mention, it's something very interesting, which I did. And as I told you, I was very bad at, my handwriting was terrible, and so was my drawing. So what I did eventually was that for any question where I used to draw a diagram or a chart or a pie graph or anything by a pencil, very rough sketch. It shouldn't take more than 2 to 3 seconds, just to show that you have an idea of what's happening. And not in every answer, where you feel you can make a point. You could make a table. You could, let's say, for example, you're talking about different types of biomes found in India, or let's say the idea of what is BT brinjal, biotechnology. So you could talk about that. You make a small graph or a small doodle about what you're actually representing. But this does not take place of your answer. You write your answer, and then you supplement the answer by a graph or something. That makes your answer stand out. I did this in my optional, especially geology, and proud to say that geology, about 42 people took the exam with geology, and out of those 42, 40 had background in geology. One was an MTech, and one was me, poor me with BSc from Stevens, but I had no background in geology. Geology was an entirely self-taught course. Because I loved the subject. It was about dinosaurs and chemistry and geography, a lot of stuff. So I thought, okay, it's something interesting. Why not go for it? That was the only thing which drove me. But eventually, because of that interest, I could put that interest in paper. So make sure that when you're reading something, enjoy it, because it will show through. It'll come through in the answers, and that'll show to the examiner, okay, this person has understood the subject, and and is different. So, for example, a lot of people take public administration or geography as an option. So it's very difficult to stand out from the from the ordinary. So imagine an examiner who's checking the same answer on, let's say, what causes monsoons in India. right? And everybody's writing the same story, you know. So 10, 15, 20, 30 people. And then this 31st person draws a quick map, shows the arrows that this is monsoon, this is retreating monsoon, just for a second. And they're like, okay, this is something interesting. You know, he's written that, she's written that, but there's a graph or there's a map along with it. So that sort of attracts the attention. You know, that's something which you can do. But again, make sure you time yourself when you're practicing. It shouldn't be that you're doing all these creative things and you lose time. Right.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a question for you. At the end, you said, you know, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you've put your 100%. You don't make it; it's a loss for UPSC. I think it's very quick and easy for somebody sitting there to say this, but for someone who's getting 3 years of their lives out, you know, 3 saal aapne UPSC mein diya, and after that you didn't make it. I mean, whatever reason you didn't make it, and then you go out for a corporate world, go to any other place, and they ask you, hey, what have you been doing for 3 years? And sir, UPSC prepare kar rahe the, no employer would be interested in him. I mean, what do you say about those people who've been combating depression? Because it's a very tough world, in fact. It's not.
Correct. Absolutely. I agree. But trust me, if somebody is you know, you're applying, you're, let's say, for a corporate world, after, let's say, 3 years, you haven't done a job and you're applying for a corporate world, there would be an interview, they would be assessing you. There would be some kind of questions, right? They'll be putting across. So you shouldn't take your failure in the UPSC as your selling point. Your selling point is that I studied so much, I learned so much. So when you're answering, your answer shouldn't be that I prepared for UPSC and I failed. Your answer should be, I developed myself, I learned a lot, and here I am. I didn't get through, so here's my chance to, you know. My only point is, any corporate would be a dumb fool not to hire you only based on this fact. You need to show that you need to be showing your positive personality. What do you bring to the organization? What is your specialty? It's not 3 years of experience or non-experience or lack of it. You know, it's your personality, your positives which you're getting there. How will that help the organization? So if the corporate is not choosing you, let it be because of your qualities, that you're not suited for the organization. But let it not be just for this fact that, you know, you don't have any work experience. That doesn't really matter. You know, at the end, it's your personality, your positives. And it might be easier for me to say, yes, I agree. But trust me, if I hadn't gone through this, I would be doing something else, wouldn't it? I would be existing. I would be happy in some other place. That's how it is. So make sure you do that. Don't let anything bog you down. That's very important.
I wanted to propose a word of thanks.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was reminding me on that. But Raghav, sir, thank you so very much. And as the custom in SCAL is to invite one of the participants to sort of give you the proposed word of thanks, I request Sai Karthik to please propose a word of thanks to the speaker for the day, Raghav Gupta.
Thank you, sir. I was actually going to ask one question also, but if you don't mind, sir, I will email that to you because we're really running out of time. Firstly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you. I was going to say taking time off your holiday, the only holiday that you get, but then you mentioned that you're working today as well. So I think by far this lecture has been a really, like Blessing sir said, it was like sitting down in a lawn, you know, outside the library in college and just talking to like your immediate senior who just cleared the exam. So I think for that comprehensive and holistic talk, you know, you took us from the touch and feel of you know, why the exam is given to the nitty-gritties and everything in between. So I'd like to, you know, thank you for really answering our questions and also testing our knowledge here and there. It was a fabulous lecture and I think one of the best that I've attended. So thank you so much, sir, for that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our principal, Professor John Verghese, SCAL, and a special shout out to Blessing sir for actually creating and organizing this and putting us in touch with such eminent personalities. And so, yeah, it's been a really wonderful day, and I'd really like to thank all of you for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sai. Raghav sir, on behalf of Professor John Verghese, Principal of the College, on behalf of me and SCAL and this cohort, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking out this time for me. But now after hearing your lecture, my heart knows no bottom for you. I was pleasantly surprised to know that you're from Jaipuria. I won one award there. And I also fought with the principal there in Confess. They did something wrong.
Oh, right. Are you mentioning it? Right.
Yes. but just to know that it's a very small world that we are in, and we're so much connected at different levels and different areas. But really, really nice of you to take out this time on a Sunday. I'm completely aware of how busy schedules are for officers like you. But it's really wonderful to connect back to you, and very happy to bring you back to college, at least virtually. But I really look forward to hosting you in college soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, dear. And thank you, Lesson. Thank you, SCAL. Thank you, Principal. And thank you for all the participants for bearing me through this. And thank you again for letting me be here. And I think we can have a discussion anytime you want. Let me know. And you have my email, you have Lesson's email. Any questions, anything, pep talk, let me know. All the very best.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Take care. Thank you.